We both shared the chair's interest in making TUSCa work more efficiently. And Mr. Isaacs, I'm particularly interested in learning more about the semiconductor industry's perspective on TUSCa. However, I must let it be known for the record that I cannot support the current draft of this legislation. Now, I want to emphasize how much is at stake here. TUSCa is critical to protecting the health of all Americans, including and maybe especially the more vulnerable populations, including the elderly, residents of frontline communities, and others. Now, careful reviews of new chemicals by impartial EPA staff are essential in this effort. And as a result, I don't see how we can undertake any TUSCa reform effort unless we simultaneously restore EPA staffing and expertise to levels that existed prior to 2024. I think it's just common sense. You can try to strike that right balance, Senator Curtis, but if you don't have the staff to do the work, then of course it's not going to get done on a timely basis. There's also other specific provisions of the bill that concern me. Unreviewed new chemicals should not be approved for use simply because a critically understaffed EPA couldn't complete its analysis by a certain deadline. If you're fully staffed, then maybe the deadline can be more of a serious conversation and consideration. But that's not the case, and that artificial deadline combined with understaffing is allowed in several circumstances under this bill. I'm also seriously concerned that the draft bill would prevent EPA from regulating a new chemical unless it is, quote, more likely than not to create an unreasonable risk of injury to public health or the environment. Now, that may sound innocuous to some, that may sound a little too vague for some. So let's drill down here. We are considering new chemicals that have no existing track record, and assembling enough evidence, the data necessary to show that injury is more likely than not to occur could be very difficult as a result. So this standard could also block EPA from regulating chemicals with significant risks. The more likely than not is regularly understood to be 51% chance or greater of something happening, right? Majority, more than 50%. So this means that if EPA concludes that a new chemical has, say, only a 45% chance of causing significant cancer, let's say to pregnant women as an example, then the standard is not met. And the EPA cannot regulate that chemical to try to reduce the potential cancer risk. That seems absurd to me. So I know we want the certainty, we want the specifics, we always want the hard and fast number, but the proper balance is going to include a little bit of the flexibility, a little bit more of the context to make these important and critical determinations. So that being said, let me pose a question to all of you. Do any of you believe that the EPA's hands should be tied in imposing restrictions on a new chemical? And we can use that 45% example just for conversation purposes when a significant cancer risk for pregnant women or other vulnerable population has been determined. And we'll start with Dr. Engler.
So, I mean, the difference between not likely and more likely than not is that this is a critical question that we do need to answer, I think, as a TUSCa stakeholder community. Right now, the standard for EPA to proceed without a restriction is not likely. By your math, that would be 49% or 51%, or right? It's that same line. It's below that line. But that's not how EPA implements it. EPA, to not conclude that it may present, is looking for like 99% confidence that it's not going to happen, and not likely is only like 1%. So I'm not sure where that line is. That I suggested more likely than not to help give EPA some direction about the uncertainty or the level of certainty that it needs to make that decision. But I think that is one of the most important things that we need to discuss with this committee.
Mr. Isaacs.
Yeah, our main priority is that whatever standard is used, and we support EPA undertaking a thorough and appropriate review of chemicals, that they do so looking at the conditions of use in our industry, the volumes, the level of controls, and such. And we believe that their evaluation of risks under those circumstances will result in a appropriate determination. And so that's our highest concern with regard to the draft.
I think EPA should continue to be required to review the safety of new chemicals and should continue to have the authority to get the information it needs and impose the requirements it thinks are necessary.
Thank you. And not to put words in your mouth, but ensure the staffing and capacity necessary to conduct those studies
Their
and
hands should not be
reviews.
tied.
Yeah. So thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ranking Member Whitehouse, for allowing me to get my questions in.